Hello everyone, welcome to Sunburned Albino gives his final thoughts on Danganronpa V3. Talking points in front of me, and then we're just gonna spitball off of those. What's the first one? Overall, the most interesting Danganronpa so far. Trigger Happy Havoc had a good plot with average characters, Goodbye Despair had a great plot with below average characters, and Killing Harmony has a good plot with great characters. It is really all about the characters in this game. Like, they make it. This exact plot with Danganronpa 2's characters would not work, at least in terms of like how strong they were, because the characters drive the entire experience forward, and that's even more true in this game, which is great. Like, it worked out very good. This is one of the better Danganronpa games, if not the best one. Which is saying something when you consider the fact that this is the third one that we've all played. You know, like, by now, the illusion, like, the luster of Danganronpa has lost its, like, you know, like, we've lost our innocence already, you know what I mean? Like, with the first game we played it, we're like, oh my god, I'm shocked by what's going on, and then by the third one we're like, yeah, this is all standard fare. So even with that, like, this is still one of the best Danganronpa games, which means it had to fight harder to get here, so it deserves the effort. What's next? This game's characters outshine all other installments because of the sheer amount of growth so many of them go through. Himiko, Kibo, Shuichi, Kaito, Maki, Kokichi. It's true. Like, with Himiko, she starts off as like this emotionally reserved, like just kind of putting forth nothing. Like, nah, you know, because that's what her voice is. But then, you know, she decides to get stronger for her fallen friends. You know what I mean? So she, you know, comes into her own and sort of becomes, you know, a more excitable person, and it's good to see. It's nice to see growth like that. It's nice to see people improve themselves. And then, you know, we have Kibo, who started off as like this just like bumbling, sort of shy, bullyable robot. And then in the end, he's waging full-on war against the school. He's got all these upgrades, he's blowing people up with plasma rocket launchers. He's really, like, taken a stand and come into his own, and that's cool. And then Shuichi started off as just having no confidence whatsoever. He's like, I don't even deserve to be called the ultimate detective. And you can thank Kaito for bringing him out of his shell, and Maki too, but mostly Kaito. And even with Kaito, moving on to him, you thought when he came out in the beginning, like, you played him in the demo, and you're like, oh, this is another, like, bland, sort of Leon kind of character that they're probably gonna get rid of pretty quick. But it turned, he was one of the main pinnacle pillars of the story, and it was good, because he's objectively the most inspirational character in the game, and therefore maybe one of the best in general. But yeah, I mean, he keeps everyone going. He drives everything forward. So that's good for him. And then, who's after that? Maki. I'm never not gonna be extremely gloating about how good of a character Maki turned out to be, because I knew right from the start. When I played the demo, I was like, oh, Maki, best girl, ultimate child caregiver, this irony by itself is great. And then people were like, no, she seems kind of like bland, and like, she's not really, you know, she's tsundere and like, kind of glowering and not really offering much. And then Kokichi squeaks the words ultimate assassin out of his mouth, and then everybody gets on board right then. Oh, there's more to Maki than meets the eye. And I'm like, you're damn straight right there is. So that's good. Yeah, Maki again is one of the best characters also. And then Kokichi. With Kokichi, starts out as this sort of like, you know, this harmless kind of childlike, like, he, you know, he's objectively, like, I don't want to say evil, but chaos, on the side of chaos or whatever. Like, on the side of, like, just destructive, shall we say. And he grows to become this, like, sort of mastermind in his own right. The way he tries to take over the school from Monokuma. And he passes himself off as the mastermind, and he could have pulled it off. I never thought he was the mastermind. I always thought that it was Well, I don't want to get into that because that's a talking point for later. But moving on, you really need to gather all the characters' friendship fragments to really appreciate them. I can't stress that shit enough. I had my, like with my waifu ranking that I'm doing very soon after this video comes out, it was so hard to make decisions, and then like, I was like, oh no, I have it figured out. And then on a whim, I was like, well, what if I max out everybody's friendship fragments first? Just to like see, you know, what they all have to offer. And doing that drastically changed my opinion. You cannot judge the characters just based on who they are in the main plot. You gotta get to know them, and you'll find yourself extremely surprised by how much more you like pretty much everybody, except certain people, but pretty much everybody. So really, I suggest that you do that. I was sad to lose Kaede as the main character, but Shuichi is still the best male protagonist of the three once Kaito picks up his self-esteem. I like Shuichi more than I like Hajime and Makoto. Makoto and Hajime are, you know, they're like the bland protagonist, right? And Shuichi, I'm not saying Shuichi is super, like, you know, has his own thing going on, but at least he has something going on. He's the ultimate detective. It makes sense for the protagonist to be the ultimate detective, by the way. Like, how is Makoto and Hajime solving all these complicated cases? I mean, even in Danganronpa 1, like, Makoto has Kyoko's help, but she still defers to him for everything. Like, oh, you tell him. And with Shuichi, it makes a lot more sense for him to be the ultimate detective. So I think he's the protagonist that fits the bill the most in any of the Danganronpa games. And I was so excited about Kaede being the protagonist. It's like finally a chick protagonist, which is to say a protagonist that I can get behind, emotionally, I mean. And just, I don't know, I like girl characters more than guy characters in games, just any of them. And then they, you know, they killed her off 6 hours later, and it's even more insult to injury when you think of the fact that she died for literally no reason because the mastermind cheated, which sucks. That's bad. But yeah. Oh, question. What was the deal with Kaede's younger twin sister at the end? Cause she never showed up. They brought her up like, oh, you know, there's this 17th name on the Gopher Project. It seems like Kaede has a younger twin sister. And then it was just like, it didn't amount to anything at all. She never came out of the woodwork. She was never brought up again in a meaningful way because it turned out that it had nothing to do with her. So what's her deal? Where did she come from? Where did she go? Where did she come from, Cotton Eye Joe? Like, I don't understand what her significance was supposed to be, except just like this small thing to sort of draw your attention away from other possibilities. So that was kind of like a seam that was not pulled on. As far as the ending goes, I don't mind meta plot lines. Like, wrapped around this insane idea of everything being real fiction was a solid theme of how fiction can change people's hearts, which is a sentiment I can agree with and is frankly irrefutable. Like, I've seen things that have changed my disposition on a thing, and they've changed who I am, that were not real things, so I can firsthand attest to the fact that fiction does have the power to change people. It does, like, just unquestionably, because it changed me, so therefore I'm living proof of that, and I doubt I'm the only one. So I was on board with that whole ending. I liked it. I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, they went too meta, I hate it now. Like, just enjoy the plot, just because it's like, quote-unquote stupid doesn't mean you can't like it. You know what I mean? Like, for this whole, like, suspension of disbelief thing, like, you understand you're playing a fucking video game right now, right? Not everything needs to be hyper-realistic, like, oh, well, if they follow the logical plot points, like, this would never happen, this is a contrived thing. Get a grip on yourself. Like, loosen up and enjoy the story. Enjoy the entertainment that Danganronpa hath provided for you. Yeah. Oh, okay, so back to, pretty much everything Kokichi did was to draw out the real mastermind. So despite what you may say about, you know, and he's the ultimate liar, basically, which is to say, you know, you can't take anything he says at face value, so even anything he says where you think you know his true character, you're probably incorrect. That's why it's my personal belief that Kokichi was always on our side. and wanted, you know, in his final confession to Kaito, he's like, oh, I hated the killing game most of all. It's no fun to play a game you're forced to play. So he just kind of had to make the best of his situation, and I can kind of buy that. And it's like, he became the mastermind in order to draw out the true mastermind. I think that's irrefutable. He tried to take over the show to see if the mastermind would, like, do something to reveal themselves or make a mistake. Which did not work, unfortunately, but it was a solid plan. And I commend him for that. I like Kokichi. He's one of the better characters in the game. You know, people compare him to Nagito. As far as that comparison goes, I think I probably like Nagito more, but I still like Kokichi anyway. Alright, what's after that? We have a lot of talking points. This is gonna be like a half-hour video, probably. Okay, so I'm gonna give some conflicting opinions. Like, I'm gonna say some things in this video that are not gonna hold traction when I release my waifu ranking, so just know that there's gonna be disparities and I'm not gonna address them. Oh, yeah. Maki is best girl, and her falling for Kaito was not cool at all. I said she was best girl when I played the demo. Oh yeah, I talked about that already. I kind of jumped the gun on that one. But at least in dating simulator mode, like in this mode that we're in right now, this is the salmon team thing where you just walk around and get friendship fragments from people and you can take them on dates with date tickets and then you leave after 10 days with them and unlock like special scenes where they like fall in love and whatnot. So that's cool. I've done that with Kaede and Maki. And I have every other girl's friendship fragment at max. But beyond that, there's like dates that you have to take them on to raise their affection level even more, and I haven't done that with anyone else. But what was I talking about? Oh yeah, so you can romance Maki guilt-free here because like you know deep down like she has no history with Kaito in this mode. But that's the thing about Maki is you feel guilty like when in the main plot because Kaito's such a good guy and it pisses me off. He's infallible in terms of like negative things you can say about him. He's untouchable. Kaito is the glue that held the entire group together. He's MVP of the entire game. No question about it. And so it makes it even more frustrating that I can't have Maki, like quote unquote have Maki, because her feelings for him, which, get out. But still, like, Okay, what's after that? Oh, I want to hate Kaito for stealing my girl, but he's the most inspirational character in the series. I basically just went into that. Okay, that whole audition tape thing to be in a real Danganronpa story, that needs to be a real thing, because I'll sign up pronto. I've said it like 12 times along the series' history, but Sunburned Albino would like to be the ultimate comedian in the next Danganronpa game. And, you know, you give me like a Japanese name, you can make me like Sunburned Albino, or whatever you want to give me. I don't care. Obviously, it'll be like a regular name, but yeah, that would be so great. Audition to be in the next game, even if like you don't do a voice in it. Like, you know, audition to have like your likeness and maybe give some kind of idea of your plot and backstory and whatnot, and then they could use that. And it's like basically it's like a Kickstarter like project goal thing. Like not in that way, but like in the fact that like, you know, you get like a perk kind of nice stuff. You know what I'm talking about? Like it's, I brought a Kickstarter, it doesn't make any difference, but like just, or maybe make it like a contest. Like come out with a contest and be like, hey, submit yourself or something. And then, you know, the winner will get to be in the next game. That would be fantastic. And I'd do it in a second. So yeah, that needs to be real. I want to see the killing game Rantaro participated in and won before he came to this one. It would be a full-fledged game. We'd control him as the protagonist because we already know that he makes it through the end, so it's not spoilery because he had to have or he wouldn't be in this game. Plus we get to learn what his original ultimate was before it became the ultimate survivor. I actually have a theory on that now that I've maxed out his friendship fragments in this mode. He talks about how he like travels across the world, and there was like this sort of like smoke smokescreen stuff about like, oh, he's the ultimate big brother because he lost 12 of his sisters around the globe for something. Like, that's weird. But the way he talks makes me think he's like the ultimate collector. Because if you give him an item that he loves, he's like, hey, this must have been pretty valuable. Like, you're giving this to me? And he's like, I can give you something too later. I have a lot of rare things. So he seems like someone he strikes me as like an Indiana Jones type, where like he travels the world and maybe he's like the ultimate treasure hunter. Like, it could be something like that. I could see him as that kind of thing. And that would be cool. Like the ultimate trader, collector, treasure hunter, what have you. I think that would be good for him. I could totally see that for him. Yeah. Oh, the way they re-examined Rantaro's case and found a new angle on who actually killed him is some of the most brilliant trial work I've seen. The first trial was ridiculous, the way that it pinned the protagonist for the crime. And to go back and see that it even wasn't even her is mind-blowingly like good. That's great. A trial that's so well designed, you can come up with a very convincing outcome and set someone to death for that, and we all believe it. Like, none of us... I mean, I was like, I don't think a shot put would kill him from that height. But it turned out that the shot put just missed him entirely. And to have like a whole nother thing going on at the same time that you then bring to light later, and it fits like a glove into the story. Like, nothing's contrived, nothing seems out of place. Like, the fact that Tsumugi used the passageway and she was in the girls' bathroom to begin with, that was very like fluidly designed. There's no plot gaps or plot holes in that story at all. It was very good. And I was like, I'm very impressed by that. Oh yeah, and speaking of, Tsumugi as the mastermind isn't that surprising because she's like the most plain character, and it was almost kind of like too obvious that she has no development at all. But, but I'm so glad that Junko was just a cosplay and not like the real one back from the dead again somehow. I would have been very down if it was just like, oh, I'm Junko and I'm back. But cosplaying as Junko, also, this is a weird kind of like ending theory, but like, is this one fiction? Is this game fiction along with all the previous ones? Because Tsumugi was all like, oh, I have cospox, I can't cosplay as real people. So when she tried to cosplay as Kaeya Days, she turned all bright red and whatever. Was that her just faking it? Like, oh, I'm gonna cosplay as somebody who gets a rash when they try to cosplay as somebody. And she could do all the other Danganronpa characters just fine. She came out as like Teru and everybody. And, so what, and the ending kind of calls into like, there might still just be a real world out there, and this whole thing was staged in like just a big smokescreen. But, otherwise it's a plot hole that I can't really ignore. It's like, oh, she can't cosplay as fictional characters, but we are fictional characters. Or she can cosplay as fictional characters, and we are fictional characters, so she should have been able to cosplay as Kaeya, but she couldn't. But then she goes back as the other one. So like, what is bullshit about this? Like, which part is the bullshit that turns out is gonna like turn the story, the ending on its head? So I guess it's just for us to guess at this point, but... And I don't get too nitpicky about plot holes. Like, I'm not somebody who's like, oh, why didn't Frodo just fly the ring to Mordor and that ruins my enjoyment of the entire trilogy? Like, no. Like, that's a good point, but if he did that, there'd be a lot less movie for you to watch, so you should be thankful that he didn't. Yeah. Oh, speaking of more themes, the idea that hope is actually the driving force behind despair and the reason the killing game never ends is worth thinking about. That's a great philosophical quandary. That the whole reason this game is allowed to exist and continues to be so popular is because of people's obsession with hope, not despair. Despair is just the you know, the contender that's supposed to lose in the end, you know? It's the guy that's supposed to tap out in the ring so that you're the one you put all your bets on can win it all for you. I thought that whole rationale was glorious. Like, that's good. That's so good. There's not much more to say about that. Like, it turns out good is actually evil. Or good is what allows evil to continue to exist, basically, is what they're saying. And I 100% agree with that, at least in terms of this game. Because that's exactly the rationale of why the audience continues to tune in. They're like, come on, hope, beat out despair, let's do it. And it works, basically. The only way that we can forego that is to not take the side of either hope or despair and to abstain. So, yeah. Well, I skip that one because I basically talked about that one. Gonta was manipulated into killing just as pretty much everyone suspected he'd be, although none of us are sad it was Miyu. I'm gonna amend that last part slightly. Miyu's a good girl. I don't want to say it like that, but like, you know, if you do her friendship fragments, she has good qualities. She's a nice person. There's things to like about her. But yeah, Gonta, I feel like we all would have been sadder about Gonta if it wasn't such a obvious thing to happen. You know, like you get a dumb character like this, and it was even foreshadowed when Kokichi basically manipulated him into gathering everybody up to begin with, so like of course he could do it again and do it for more sinister purposes. Although I wouldn't call them sinister. I think Kokichi killed Miyu just to keep himself alive, in my mind. Or Kokichi had gone to kill Miyu. Some more, you know. And it turns out that all the flashback lights were false memories, so whatever they saw was fake. So that does make it sadder. Gonta died for a lie, essentially. Okay, down to Ryoma. What a tragedy. Ryoma's one of my favorite characters, and just as he was like trying to get his groove back and find a purpose to live for, he had to go see a video that basically said, hey, you love nobody and nobody loves you, enjoy the rest of your life. And so he just let Kirumi kill him. And yeah, he knew what Kirumi had at stake. He basically sacrificed his own life to maybe save the world. And, you know, it's about as noble as a death as it can get. Although other people were trying to do that too. So it kind of devalues it a little bit. Especially because, like, Kirumi... The thing about that whole part of that second trial after she was convicted is when she was all like... And when people were all like, oh, I can volunteer myself in Kirumi's place. She wanted them to do that. Like, that was a calculated decision on her part, and Kokichi called her out for it, and she got real mad at him for it. But he was right. Like, that was her plan, was to try and get someone to take her place. If we didn't know it was possible, if it was possible, but she had to give it a shot. So, you know, I don't really feel bad for Kirumi at all. What's after that? Oh, Hangman's Gambits can fuck off forever. Those trial minigames, they're the worst of the worst. The name is it's always like relevant, but it's always worded in such a way that you would never describe it that way. The only Hangman's Gambit that worked was Exosols, because that was the only possible answer, and I was like, oh, it's Exosols, and hey, this has the same amount of letters as the word Exosols. Does it start with an E? It does? Oh my god, it actually worked? But beyond that, like, Victim Helped, that's trash. I remember back in Danganronpa 2, with Mikan's trial, the answer was schizo, and that's not a real thing. I mean, it's short for schizophrenia, but schizophrenia wasn't even what Mikan had. At least I think it was for Mikan's case. I'm pretty sure it was. Like, dissociative identity disorder is not schizophrenia. So, that's just mislabeling, and that really pissed me off. But... Or was it Nagito? Somebody was schizo, but they weren't. But it was dissociative identity disorder. But they they don't know what that is. Yeah, so Hangman's Gambit sucks. I hate that. The rest of the trial minigames were actually alright. Like, even Truth Blade seemed easier, since it was easier to guess initially which Truth Blade was gonna refute the argument. Or maybe I just got lucky. But I felt like it was easier for me to, like, quickly cycle to the right answer based on what the thing was. So I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that was good. I love that, though everyone's personalities and morals are vastly different, everybody agrees on the unwritten rule that if you become good enough friends with someone, you give them your favorite pair of underwear. That's just the law of the land. That's Japan. That's everywhere, actually. Every single place does that, and I've done it. I'm almost out of underwear. I've given them to so many people because I have so many good friends. But, yeah. Oh, I watched all the female love suite scenes on YouTube. I recommend Angie's if you're looking for reasons to like her more, and Himiko's if you want her cuteness to exponentially increase. The rest are meh, although if you want to have nightmares, you can feel free to watch Korekiyo's, because that one involves bondage, and also it involves Korekiyo, so there's that. You know, now that he's a psycho, which... I know, like, when it comes to character development, like, obviously all the characters are made with their entire plot lines in mind. So it's not like I can be like, oh, they ruined Korekiyo by making him psycho. He was always psycho, you just didn't know it until they reveal it. But he functioned much better to me as just like this interested wallflower. Like this fly on the wall that was just here to observe everybody. And was you know, just like a harmless mosquito, just hanging out, doing his anthropology stuff, and I liked him at that point. And then he turned in, and then he lost all likability once he was revealed to just be a crazy person who killed people so his sister could have friends. Like, yeah, I don't know. Whatever. Okay, there's just a few more left, and I've got more written out for them because they're like sort of deeper dives. As more games release, more people are fighting the killing game. Like in Danganronpa 1, everybody basically submitted and played the game, and Kyoko was pretty much the only one snooping around to any effect. In Danganronpa 2, everybody basically submitted and played the game, except Nagito, who revealed his insanity and fought back against the killing game through chaos. In Danganronpa 3, multiple people fought back against the killing game, some even immediately. Like, before there was even a murder, Rantaro was trying to execute his plan to stop the mastermind, Kaeya Days was trying to kill the mastermind, then later Kirumi fled her own execution in an attempt to escape, both Kokichi and Angie tried to take over the school, and Kibo waged flat-out war against the Exisals. Less and less people are playing by the rules, which makes me wonder how you can keep that momentum going in future games. Like, are we gonna scale like is the next game gonna start with like a full-fledged revolt that ends in despair and then forces them to accept their situation? Like an uprising? Like that's the only way I could see it continuing to move forward. Is if everybody rallies together right from the start. And they kind of did in this game when they were trying to escape through the tunnel, but I don't know. Yeah. That wasn't very a large-scale thing. Overall, this game did a great job of turning things you thought were arbitrary in the beginning into major reveals, like Kibo's inner voice being the audience, Horse A being half of what unlocks Rantaro's lab vault before it's contaminated by Kokichi, gone to seeing tiny bugs that turned out to be microscopic security cameras. The hints were everywhere right from the start, and we just didn't catch on. And I really like when you can have something fly under the radar like that. I think it takes some expert implications to be able to successfully pull that off. And so I appreciate when that's done well, which it was. Lots of things. Lots of foreshadowing tools that went unrecognized by the vast majority of people playing the game. Conversely, the game also did a great job of turning major reveals into arbitrary things. Like Monokuma dying only to get a spare, same with all the Monokubs one by one until they're just born again. the reveal of Junko just being a cosplay, which technically is better, but still, and all the flashback lights being false memories that meant nothing. Tsumugi sums it up best when she just flat out says everything was a lie, which I get why that would turn some people off, but I'm never one to be disappointed by stuff like that. Like, to me, everything was a lie doesn't make everything that happened pointless. It just paints it in a new light and turns it upside down to be viewed from a different angle and reevaluated, which is fun. But that's pretty much all I have to say about Danganronpa V3 that I could think of when I was typing up talking points. So then AMA starts now in the comments. You can ask me anything relating to what I thought of anything in Danganronpa V3, and ask me anything I didn't cover in the video, and I'll answer it if it's not like a repeat question. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time.